Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with journalist and author Ian Dunt and former Conservative MP, now chair of the Women's Business Council, Mary McLeod. They'll be with us from now until just before midnight. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the election of the first North American Pope, Leo XIV, is the lead for The Guardian, which quotes his pledge to build bridges and not let evil prevail. The Metro reacts to the speed at which the new Pope was elected. Its headline, "Holy smoke, that was quick." To the other big story of the day, the Financial Times leads with the historic UK-US trade deal announced by London and Washington. The Eye says that Britain has won the global race to shake off the worst of Donald Trump's trade tariffs. The deal is also lead in the Times. The Telegraph, meanwhile, says the agreement gives the USA a veto on Chinese investment in the UK. As the Mail sees it, the deal was only possible because Britain decided to leave the EU. But the Express leads on Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch's claim that the UK has, in her words, been shafted. So, welcome to Ian Dunt and Mary McLeod. Good to see both of you. Let us start with our lead story, and that is the announcement of the new Pope. Front page of the Metro. They've gone for a slightly humorous take. Holy smoke, that was quick. Nobody was expecting a decision so soon, were they, Ian?
No, this is incredible. Isn't this the fastest decision for 100 years? So, I mean, really, we don't usually get this, and I kind of thought I was safe tonight, that this would not be happening anytime soon, and probably we'd have another few days of this stuff. So then you get to the point, and I'm not going to pretend that I have any sort of deep, searing analysis of what goes on behind those closed doors, because I don't, and I don't really think anybody else does either.
Well, we don't know what goes on behind
Well, we
closed
don't
doors.
know, exactly. Although some people can make more authoritative guesses than the ones that I'm about to make, I imagine. You do sort of think, well, there's something quite pointed about that. And there is something to be learned from it. There's clearly a great degree of confidence in the choice that they did. There was clearly quite a lot of consensus in the choice that they took. And that does seem to fit with this repeated refrain that you hear in almost all the analysis about this man, which is not a word I was expecting to use about a new pope, which is centrist. So they talk about it when he's in Peru, quite centrist when it comes to liberation theology on the left on one hand and the more right-wing elements. When it comes to the conversations over sort of social liberal values now and sort of church rules, over and over again they use that line of oh, he's quite a centrist figure, and that gives a fairly interesting indication of why they may have come to that decision quite as quickly and confidently as they did.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, because, I mean, this is quick. I mean, it's day 2, it's only 4 rounds. You're trying to bring together 133 cardinals with different views, I'm assuming. So this is a very quick decision. And so it says something about the new Pope Leo. You know, I think it's a moment where right now in the world we live in, which is full of uncertainty, and he's got some big things to deal with during his time as Pope, and therefore if he can help unite people in that centrist way, but you know he will be being pulled in different directions, I'm sure. But he obviously must have built really good relationships across the cardinals too.
But his name wasn't in the frame, though, was it? And
that's what makes it really interesting. And I think we've seen this before, and people do now think they know something about this because of Conclave.
Yes.
Of course,
That's the whole of my research. I just want to be clear about that.
We don't know
how
much of Conclave is true. But, you know, I think the world needs building bridges anyway. And therefore, if he can... But there is a feeling that he will carry on some of what Pope Francis was doing. Seems to really relate to that humble approach to really, you know, say, what can we do to help those most in need and poor? But he's literally got huge issues to deal with in the Catholic Church, and therefore, you know, if he can bring unity and peace and build those bridges, then that's a really good thing.
Let's move to The Guardian, and they bring in the perhaps future relationship that the Pope will have with Donald Trump, who we know angered Catholics by posting that AI-generated picture of himself as Pope on social media. Yeah. But he was amongst the first world leaders to congratulate Prevost, even though the pair look set to perhaps clash.
I mean, look, he's still American, so there's no way, you know, any leader of the country that happens to be the one that they've been picked from is going to say that. The mayor of Chicago, in a rather more colourful way, was talking about everything that is dope comes from this city, including, apparently, the Pope. So, look, everyone's going to have that kind of, like, slightly parochial pride over it. But these guys are not going to get on. I mean, you used that phrase just now, building bridges. Remember the last Pope, one of the ways that he attacked Donald Trump was saying that, you know, that Christianity is not about building walls, in reference to that wall against Mexico, it's about building bridges. Using that metaphor now in this situation seems pretty explicitly political to me, especially, and, you know, it would sound like I'm getting this out of thin air, but when you start looking at this guy's social media account,
yes,
you know, it's actually pretty explicit what he thinks about
views
immigration.
On immigration particularly.
Exactly, yeah. This man is not going to be a friend of the US president.
What do you think to that, Mary?
Well, I mean, first of all, he's got to lead 1.4 billion Roman Catholics, and that is an incredible task to do. And I'm sure as he was standing there, and we see the picture of him, part of the realisation of the responsibility that he has in that was he was feeling it. You know, though there was, you know, thousands of people in front of him cheering him, and there seemed to be, you know, everyone was feeling really positive about the announcement. And it is interesting that it's an American Pope. So yeah, so it'll be fascinating. But you know, if he is someone, and the Leo means light, so you know, if he can actually create some light in the world, bring people together, convene, build the bridges, then that will be good. But yeah, he will speak his mind. He won't be.
Yes.
He won't just do what he's told, and just as Trump doesn't, and so therefore, you know, they may clash.
Ian, if we look to the Daily Mail, their headline there: tennis playing White House critic. They're setting up a match, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know if I would have led with tennis, to be honest, in terms of the interesting actor. Well, I mean, I guess so. I guess it's something. You know, another word that keeps on coming up in all of the coverage is gentle. It's repeated in almost every sort of bit of analysis in every newspaper, and I find that's quite an interesting quality for people to be pointing towards right now. It doesn't feel like there's an awful lot of gentleness in the world at the moment. It's not a quality that you would associate with Donald Trump. It's not something that you would associate with the kind of the hotspots that we see around us, whether it's sort of India, Kashmir or Gaza. Like that word, gentle leaders, gentle situations, that is not the kind of era that we live in. And to have someone with prominence, even if it's in a religion that, you know, I have no connection to have someone with prominence that is referred to using that word, I have to say I find quite reassuring.
Although his comments on J.D. Vance on social media were
not gentle.
Described as gentle. We must leave it there for the moment. We're going to take a break. Much more coming up in part 2 on the US-UK trade deal. Who wins and who loses? Stay with us.
Trying to get people to disperse.
What Prince Harry wanted to do was to eject me.
Is that your opinion?
It is. It is.
They were serious, coordinated attacks.
It's an entire generation that will have to contend with the horrifying impacts of this conflict.
The number of patients is increasing.
It's been quite some day.
Hey, what country are you
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country?
You've gone viral.
I've ever had such a reaction.
It's just incredible.
Since the Oval Office meeting, have they reached out to you?
If Ukraine asks for help and its allies decide to help, then that's the end of it.
Criticism of you, the president, is banned. How is this a fair election?
A historic day here today.
Beth Rigby from Sky.
You said to people, I'm not coming back for more, but you have come back for more.
There could be some more painful decisions to come.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm James Matthews, and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky security and defence editor. I've covered Russia's full-scale war since it began, witnessing the terror and the trauma.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. Sky News, get the full story first.
I'm Martha Kellner, and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Getting the chance to tell people's stories, it's a privilege. I'm Adam Parsons, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Brussels.
I'm Dan Whitehead, Sky News' West of England and Wales correspondent. Sky News, get the full story first, free, wherever you get your news.
The Premier League run-in is live on NBC and streaming on Peacock as the race for Europe intensifies. Saturday, Aston Villa chase Champions League qualification when they visit Bournemouth. Sunday, newly crowned Premier League champions Liverpool back on their perch host Arsenal. This is the Premier League run-in, live on NBC and Peacock.
Jubilation in the streets, while some emotional.
This is a political victory for Prime Minister Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Sky News, get the full story first.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, journalist and author Ian Dunt and former Conservative MP, now chair of the Women's Business Council, Mary McLeod. Right, in this section, let's start off with the Financial Times and that all-important, at times it seemed elusive, US-UK trade deal has come to fruition today. The headline there, Starmer seals first US trade deal since start of Trump war, the first country to sign a deal. Mary.
Yes, so I think there's always a good headline to be the first in there, to look like you've got the special relationship. And to be honest, we've always had a really special relationship with the US, so it's not surprising that we have a first deal here. But at the same time, I mean, there's some benefits to this. So steel scrapped, aluminium scrapped as well. Cars, it's the first 10%. So the first 100,000 cars is now at 10%. But that's mostly all of our exports on that. But so there are some interesting things. The UK airline was banded around about doing a real deal on Boeing planes. The US feel they've got a good deal out of this. So even on the things on farming and beef and ethanol, Trump was talking about that it was benefiting them on products about $5 billion. So he really feels he's got a good deal. Starmer feels he's got a good deal. But we're still, in terms of if you look across the tariffs, we're still got more tariffs than we had a few months ago.
Ian, has the UK come out of this on the positive side? I mean, they would say that, obviously, but there are obviously people like Kemi Badenoch who've been rather disparaging about...
Yeah, shall we quote her?
You can.
She said, shafted. We've been shafted by the... I don't want to... Apparently, I'm 100 years old, but is it possible that the leader of the opposition can just conduct themselves with a little bit more grace than the amount that she manages talking in this way? Not only is the argument, completely... I mean, there's just no one talking this way. Even if you read, the farming union, people that are sat there who are the most exposed to this area, they're not talking in this way. For her to come out with this kind of language is just so desperate and confused. And it's especially desperate when you think about how sycophantic she was towards Donald Trump just a few short weeks ago. Look, no one's winning. America isn't winning. I mean, America's definitely not winning. America's, undergoing some of the most substantial deterioration in its standing and its economic life that we've experienced in our lifetime. We're not winning either. We're just getting back to a position that's still worse than the one we were in when Donald Trump came to power. This is a damage limitation exercise. But what could Keir Starmer do? He ultimately is presented with a situation where he's like, I've got to save British jobs. That is my primary function in this role.
Well, that's one of the headlines, if we look at the Eye, that he's saying the agreement will protect thousands of jobs, and Britain becomes first country to win this deal. And that's what he's been trying to do, and others have said that it's an emergency deal because the jobs were literally on the line.
Yeah, well, I mean, they are. I mean, he has managed to do the job that he is there to do. He can't basically clear away all the damage, and he's certainly not achieving anything. This talk coming from both him and Trump of like it's some great... It is not a great... This is not even an actual free trade agreement. This is not what we were talking about 5 years ago when we talked about FTAs. In that kind of situation, you talk about, fine, you know, what do we allow in agriculture? How far can we penetrate with financial services? That's like a big, actual, meaningful deal. This is basically a bandage, but it's a bandage that you're very glad he applied.
Sir Keir Starmer saying that this is only the beginning. Also, Peter Mandelson saying that in the White House, that it's the start, so it's not the final destination.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of detail underneath that has to be developed on these. This is the intention on those deals, but it's not the full trade deal. So that's part of it. I think there's also big questions about pharma, tech and digital and other sectors that are just, you know, again, they have to be looked at in a lot of detail. So
yeah, those still to be discussed.
They've still to be discussed. So it's the start of a process, and certainly you'd have hoped that we would have come to some agreement on something at this stage, that where there's a win-win in part of it. But I mean, Trump had to move somewhere from where he was, and he's already backed down on some of it, and he's telling people that don't expect other countries to not expect what we've...
Ian, I wonder if we can just quickly bring in this point. We've only got about 30 seconds. The Daily Telegraph, that the Prime Minister has given the US veto on any Chinese investment in the UK.
Look, they've obviously been briefed by the Tories. In fact, at one point, they just admit, the Tories told us this. When you actually look for the detail of what that's supposed to involve, it's nothing. It's just a kind of classic section of a deal that you'd have. It'd be, we will notify each other of what we consider ramifications of security on investment. Later on, they talk about other completely bog-standard elements of FTAs and act like there's some kind of extraordinary shock halfway down their copy. It's a utterly illiterate article by the Telegraph and seemingly fed to them entirely by the Conservative Party.
Say what you think, Ian. Don't sit on the fence. Ian and Mary, thank you very much for the moment. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, the next few days look mainly dry and it will turn warmer, but thundery downpours are possible on Sunday. Most places will start fine tomorrow, if a little chilly, but parts of central and eastern England will see low cloud or fog. That will soon lift through the morning to leave plenty of sunshine across the UK and Ireland, but some fair weather cloud will bubble up. The odd light shower is possible, with South West Ireland most at risk. It'll be warmer than recently, especially near eastern coasts.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Coming up next on Sky News at 11, US Cardinal Robert Prevost becomes the first American Pope, taking the name Leo XIV.